and swammers. Welcome back to another edition of the SwimSwam Breakdown. As always, I'm your host, Coleman Hodges, coming to you from Brooklyn, New York, joined by the swim scribe himself, David Clossy from St. Cloud, Minnesota. David, how's it going?
I'm doing wonderful. I've had a lot of fast swims take place in the they just keep coming. Short course meters, short course yards. Doesn't
They,
matter the course, it seems like. It's fast all around.
it is not stopping. I mean, I guess technically now it's November, but this was a heck of an entertaining October.
Oh yeah.
Perhaps the fastest October we've ever seen in history. And we can talk about that more later, but it falls right under the umbrella of our first topic, or rather, our first topic falls right under that umbrella, which was the Texas Indiana dual meet. I got to be on deck for it, get some post race interviews, film some races. This dual meet was surprising to me. I knew that Texas was going to try to make it a big deal. There were 1,200 plus fans in the venue. They had Olympians and Olympic coaches signing autographs. I mean, it was a cool event, and they've been doing this for a couple of years now, where they'll have one duel in the fall and one duel in the spring, where they really try to make it a big deal. But they suited up. Texas and Indiana did. They did kind of a prelim finals type deal where they had half the dual meet in the morning, and they didn't really have, they didn't really advertise the morning part. But they did advertise the evening part, and that was the big show. But both sessions were quite fast. And I'm curious, the lens I want to look at this through is for both the men and the women. Do you think we learned more about Texas or Indiana heading into the rest of the season?
I think that for, if you split into 4 men and women for both, I think overall Texas men was what we learned the most about, because there was the most to learn from my perspective, just because there's, more changes happening to that program with Bob Bowman taking over. So it's a lot more of, it's kind of at that point right now where any insight into that program feels, like, and how they're moving through this, first season with Bowman at the helm is kind of going to be a lot of learning opportunities as spectators to kind of see where they're at and how really how quickly Bob is making his own impact on things, which feels like very quickly, because they went really fast. And I really liked, I think my favorite interview that you did on deck there was with Luke Hobson and Hubert Coach, where, they're basically breaking, I think it was Hobson that said, it feels like we're going fast every day. This is kind of a new thing. And it's really funny having Coach there with them, because then he's like, yeah, it's kind of fun to seeing you guys get to get used to Bob. And that was a really good energy of those two in the interview. And those were two athletes that had standout performances. That was those were definitely two of the big headline makers, it felt like, for just the pure times that they were going in some of those races. And then on the women's side,
Koch was 140 in the 200 IM. Luke was 131.8 in the 2 free. I know Koch won the 100 fly in 44.9, which doesn't seem that great when Ilya Karun goes 43.9, but still, for October, early November, it's like, it's, yeah.
That's actually, since it was last week, Ilya at that ASU NC State meet is the fastest in the 50 free, the 100 free, the 100 fly, and the 200 fly right now. Him having the fastest times in the 50 and 100 free is insane. And the only event at that meet where he didn't go personal best was the 200 fly. That's crazy. He is, I think, on the men's side, is there's only 2 swimmers that have more than one top individual time right now. He has 4, and then Rex Maurer has the 400 IM and the 500. I think. Yeah. So he has 2, and he has 4, and everyone else is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
Amazing.
Yeah, those guys were lighting up, and then just seeing Texas, seeing that Bob Bowman is steering the program, and what we saw with ASU the last couple of years, and that kind of go fast all the time, and seeing like it is, at least from that snapshot in that interview, seems like it's being well received by the guy. I mean, I feel like it'd be unless someone's just like skeptical, like, oh, this worked for me in the past. I don't think anyone's going to complain about going fast more often. I think more people are going to be like, oh, this is pretty cool. And on the women's side, it feels like once again for the Texas women, Emma Sticklin just keeps a good personal best in the 100 fly and then breaks 150 again in the 200 fly. And, you know, somehow that personal best in the 100 fly is still second in the NCAA by quite a bit.
I would agree that I think as a whole we learned more about Texas, and yeah, I'll run through some times. But overall, like even when I talked to Ray Luz after the meet, he said we came here for elite racing, but I don't think we were quite prepared for what Texas had to bring because they really brought it. And, you know, they won handily on both the men and the women's sides. And Ray Luz said we lost some close races, especially on the men's side. And I think that really cost us score wise, because I think if a couple of races would have gone our way, it might have been a little bit different and the momentum might have shifted a little differently. But I think we didn't learn as much about Indiana because we didn't see them quite at their A game or quite perform to quite the level in most races that Texas was. But starting with the women, 2 school records went down. Jillian Cox went 434 in the 500 free, broke Evie Pfeiffer's school record of 435.0. And then it was only 3 years old. And then Emma Sticklin, 49.62 in the 100 fly, breaks her own school record, which I think she went last year in the January dual meet that anyway, doesn't matter. So like 2 school records on the women's side, plus there was some really surprising swims. Sophomore Angie Coe, who maybe you haven't heard of if you're listening out there. She had a great freshman year. She didn't, I think she made NC2As. I'm not sure if she scored, but she developed quite well. 154 in the 200 IM in November, November 1st. She won the 200 IM with that. And then you can see some of Texas's other swimmers. Campbell Stoll, went best times in 3 or 4 events. I think she got second in the 2 IM. She's had a great 400 IM. She swam the 100 back and the 100 fly and is going solid times in all of those. Erin Gimmel had this crazy race with her Olympic teammate. Her name is escaping me, but she's on Indiana, where Erin Gimmel goes out fast. She gets reeled in. She gets passed. And then on the last 50, she passes the other competitor and ends up winning, I want to say in 143.
Yeah, Anna Poplawski.
Anna Poplawski, thank you.
Yeah, 143.2 to 143.4.
Yeah, that was that was a great race. And again, those are both Olympic medalists for the 800 free relay in that event. And so I think Texas showed that they have a lot of depth. They have a lot of pieces that I think are going to develop over the course of this year. So I think they have not only a freshman class from last year who are now sophomores and who are now kind of taking that next step, but then they have freshmen who are already elevating and who are already kind of at that NCAA scoring level. So I think it's going to be pretty exciting for them to see how they do the rest of the year. Indiana had some great swims as well. We got to see transfer Brian Benzing, who was second in the 100 breast last year. He swam a 51.6. Nate German-Prey from Texas also went 51.6. It was down to the wire. And the Texan, Nate German-Prey, got the touch. But Owen McDonald swam the 2 IM 100 back 2 free triple in the evening session, which was pretty dirty. But he still put up, I believe, a 141 in the 200 IM. He was with Hubert Koch pretty much until the last 50 in that 2 IM. And he looked pretty toasted in the 100 back, which was the third event of the three.
And he also got that 200 back win by 100th over Coach.
Yeah, and that was in the morning session. So overall, some really sensational swims on both sides. We saw Texas A&M transfer to Indiana. Miranda Grana continue her great season. She was 51-0 to win the 100 back and 150 point in the 200 back. 0.50. Yeah, she's having a very good year. So exciting to see how she will progress for the rest of the season. But
yeah, that 200 back swim, it currently is listed as the second fastest because the top is the converted time from Claire Curzon short course meter. So it's one of the top two swims because, you know, if the short course yard, who knows who would have been faster, but, you know, NCAA A cut and is nice and fast. That was definitely one of the really strong early season performances from like a pure time perspective. You know, there's a lot of those where like, so, you know, you kind of have two levels of it. It's a good race, you know, really competitive with those swimmers going at it, or, you know, getting it down when it matters. And that's just, wow, that's just a good time. No clarification needed. That and I also love that we talked about the men's 200 back with Owen McDonald and Hubert Coach. The fact that former teammates racing each other, it's already fun. And then you're on different teams. It's just, that's such a neat storyline. And the fact that it comes down to 1/100th is crazy. That was a really cool result to see pop up.
Agreed. I loved that like underlying narrative that didn't really get like discussed, but it was just like, okay, so all of these people used to swim at Arizona State, and now half of them swim at Texas and half of them swim at Indiana, and Indiana and Texas are having a dual meet. Yeah, it's just like they've been all over. But it's pretty great to see them still competing against each other and still going very, very fast. So yeah, that's I'd say that about encapsulates Texas versus Indiana. It was a great dual meet, and again, we're not even at midseason, so I don't even know what midseason is going to look like. Come the third week of November. It'll be interesting to see who actually goes faster at midseason. You know, if some of these swimmers end up swimming faster than their in-season times. But we'll see. We'll see about that.
I think a lot of swimmers will probably go like, by and large, like, you know, maybe not necessarily just looking at like the top NCAA leaders right now, people who are expected to be in contention for titles. And I think we're going to see a lot of like overall swimmers from these teams that are suiting up more regularly and stuff like that probably still get some time drops. I think it's just going to be smaller time drops because you're only getting the benefit of, you know, a shave and resting and that kind of, you know, being able to stretch your program out over, you know, a multi-day meet rather than jamming it into like, I mean, like you're talking about with McDonald, right? Where it's like, yeah, he ran out of gas at the end there because he was doing his best to make Brendan Burns proud, I think. And
love that.
But you're just not going to get the benefit from the suit, you know, not the added benefit from, you know, you're not going to see any drops, you know, because I think there are definitely some people, if they're, you know, maybe their preparation wasn't as good going into a mid-season for whatever reason, that they're still going to go a season best time just because they went from a practice suit to a racing suit. You're not going to see people benefit in that way. But at the same time, if that preparation isn't there, then they probably weren't going as fast. You know, if we're talking about someone who isn't making headlines at in October and November anyways.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's worth noting that the trajectory of many of these team seasons is now you start here and then you just keep going up from August until March. I think people are trying to just build throughout the entire season. So you keep getting faster and faster, but you start at a pretty high place. Whereas before, you would start down here in August, or maybe you'd start here in August and go down through October, and then November come up
the straight line,
and then go back down in January, and then come back up for conference, and then be at the peak for NCAAs. So
that was a perfect illustration. Sorry to the audio listeners, but pull up the playback on YouTube and.
Yeah, basically now it's just a linear,
Yeah.
linear. I think what a lot of teams are hoping to get from their athletes is just like, hey, let's start at here and then just try to build throughout the whole season instead of just, I'm going to beat you into the ground and then we'll go fast at midseason and then you'll get beat into the ground again. And then we'll go fast again at conference and NCAAs. So I like what this has become.
Yes. It definitely leads to a lot of excitement where it's just like, people are more likely to engage with the actual meet as things are happening rather than just kind of looking at, oh yeah, what can we learn from this? I don't know, maybe something.
Right. Well, I'm reading some of our comments, and Sean Plickta says daily reminder that Kate Douglas is incredible, which is a perfect segue to our next topic, which is the World Cup, which is now concluded. We saw the last stop in Singapore, where Leon Marchand and Kate Douglas were ultimately crowned as the World Cup king and queen. I can't believe how close it was the entire time between Regan Smith and Kate Douglas for that World Cup title. I actually just got confirmation this morning that I will be talking to both of them later this week. So I think that's going to be a really fun interview. Keep your eyes out for that. But they were going back and forth. Their scores were like 0.2 of a difference every single stop. And so, and I think that's what it ended up being, like 0.1 or 0.2.
I think it was 0.1. Yeah.
I like Regan Smith posted on her Instagram that they're beefing.
I saw that.
I assume that was why. They're great friends, so I don't think they actually are, but it was pretty funny.
It was really funny also Regan Smith's
yeah.
reaction after her 200 back. Like she broke the world record, but then that was like she could see the final results on the screen. She's like, oh no.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, so I think I like the World Cup scoring because that made it so fun and so interesting in that way. I thought it was interesting that Kate Douglas only broke 2 world records and Regan Smith broke 3, but it was still, it still ended up being going to Kate Douglas, but it's not about how many world records you break, I guess. Anyway, what swimmer impressed you the most across all 3 stops, and who is your favorite swimmer to watch across all 3 stops?
See, now narrowing it down to just like one swimmer for each category is going to be incredibly difficult because I think there's a lot of different people who I'm probably going to say I have like 20 names here. Just because there are so many swimmers that were maybe not impressed, but I mean, was very impressive, but surprised me the most, which is kind of weird because he's someone who's been very successful in the past, but I was very surprised and impressed by Noe Ponti. What, like, as soon as that, I think the first day of the first stop when he was 1/100th behind Marchand in the 100 IM and watching him just rip those underwaters. And, because I was expecting like every time that, they were next to him, like, okay, now this is where Marchand's going to pull away. I think he lost ground. That was every time.
Exactly.
He was hammering those underwaters, and that was so impressive to watch. And then, of course, breaking that world record in the 50 fly twice. That was someone who wasn't necessarily on my radar as much. Like I knew he was going to be, a player, and especially that 100 fly because he's been, he went such a fast time in long course of summer and was like, just off of the podium in Paris. And, he's very capable swimmer. Definitely not a breakout for him at this point because he's been established enough, but still seeing him in that, like in those top, did he get second overall in the rankings?
Yeah.
Which is like, that's a good enough indicator of it. I think overall impressed me. I think, and it mostly just comes down to the one event, has to be Kate Douglas because that 200 breast is so insane. The fact that world record had been just there with no one able to touch it since 2009, takes a nice solid half second off of it and then goes, actually, I'm not done yet, and obliterates it 1 week later. Like watching that race, and I know for a fact she outsplit it her previous swim on every single 50. I think she may have done it on every single 25 too, because I remember watching the
Mhm.
the graphic in the bottom left where it shows the time, under world record pace. I think the number only went up. I don't think it ever went back down on every wall. And just seeing her just slowly pull away was just, my jaw was on the floor the entire time. And her ridiculous opening speed in the 200 breast. Like, my favorite game on the last 2 weeks was playing, where is her first 100 split going to place? And it was third in Incheon, and then it was second in Singapore. They should just give her the prize money for that one.
Right.
And then my favorite to watch.
That would actually be really fun. If it's like the ISL jackpots, it's like if your opening 100 places you in the money for 100 stroke,
Or if
then people get their checks revoked and you give it to them.
or Katie Ledecky, if she replaces in like the men's
Oh my
distance
God.
races, like
She
how
gets
that's always
double.
it's always a thing in pro swim series. It feels like it's like, and congratulations to Ledecky for the bronze in the men's 800 or whatever.
Seriously.
But yeah, that was just like mostly on the back of that one. But at the same time, Douglas was still winning the 100 free. That was super impressive to watch. I'm really glad that she swam that, barely missing that another 2009 world record in that 50 fly. And then in terms of just favorite to watch, getting a nice indicator of Marchand right now. I mean, it's kind of hard not to mention, especially breaking that 200 IM world record and seeing him. I think this is part of the reason why I found it so exciting to watch, is watching him get kind of progressively sharper at every stop. You can kind of tell he looked maybe a little rusty. Obviously, he took some time after the Olympics, because why wouldn't you, after having an Olympics like that in your home country, and now you're back home with your your former coach for some time, getting ready for short course stuff, and then just his underwaters are getting better for like a lot of like technical things in the straight. You're just getting faster in most of his events, and that progression, and then that perfect arc up to a world record and going 9 for 9 in the IM races is also cool to see.
Yeah. I think Leon Marchand is already at like Katie Ledecky level in terms of how we view him and his performances, because it's like, was Leon Marchand the most impressive athlete to me this week? No. Should he have been? Like, maybe, but like, he's at such a high standard, especially with short course swimming, right? I mean, obviously this isn't yards, but like, he's completely annihilated so many yards records that it's like, well, if he's not annihilating short course meters world records, then like, is this really a good swim by him? Is like how my brain works. And so it was fun, as you said, to see him kind of go through the first two stops. And it's like, okay, yeah, he's good. He's winning events, obviously. Like, it's fun to see him race. Oh, cool. But then in Singapore, you could tell like something clicked, because it's like, oh, best time 400 IM, breaks 4 minutes. Oh, world record 200 IM. Oh, 4900 IM.
Yeah,
It's
that
like,
49.
okay, like he's back, or like he's on. And so that was super fun, just to get to see him race, right? Especially coming off of such a great performance in Paris. I agree. And like, shout out to Noe Ponti, 2 world records, a Swiss record in the 100 fly, Swiss record in the 100 IM, Swiss record in the 200 IM. Like, he had himself a nice few meets where he was going tons of best times. And I think he was 4th in the Olympics in the 100 fly by like a 10th.
Not much. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe 100th even. Like, it was very close. And so to see him rebound off of that, I think he was 5th in the 200 fly as well. So it was like super close to medaling, but didn't quite get there. Great to see that for him. And then, yeah, I think I'm going to make a video about this, but to see this trio of American women of Kate Douglas, Reagan Smith, and Gretchen Walsh, within the span of 2 weeks, they broke 6 world records and 15 American records.
15?
like, I mean, and like,
That's insane.
And in every single discipline, all 4 strokes and IM, like, so that gives you, like, shows you how versatile they are, how good they are. Like, they just completely rewrote history.
That's crazy. I the fact that it's double digits and there's only 3 of them.
And there's 3 of them. I mean, they just destroy, you have Kate Douglas, who broke records in the 2 breast, the 50 fly, the 100 IM, and the 100 free. And then Reagan, both backstrokes, and Gretchen, backstroke, freestyle, and 100 IM. It's to see a work of art like that, especially in such a short period of time. I think that's the beauty of the World Cup. And I think that was my favorite part, is seeing, and obviously the coincidence that you had the Virginia, Florida dual meet at the same time being held in short course meters.
Also meant that she could have pumped that number even higher if she had more than one meet to do it in one day. If she was able to maybe improve throughout 3 weeks, or do, I want to see her do 100 fly. I really want to see that 100 fly.
Complete
the sweep for all 3 records.
Let's pull the comments up. Pusheeb is actually saying, I'm scared for how low that 100 fly world record might go. I don't know if you're referring to men's or women's, but we're talking women's. But yeah, it's just like to see those 3 women just completely destroy short course meters. I think that was absolutely my favorite part of seeing the World Cup, especially because we had never seen really any of them compete in short course meters aside from Kate Douglas at 2022 short course worlds.
Yeah, she's picked up some hardware. I think she won the 200 breast and maybe an IM event. She's definitely has a handful of medals and at least 1 gold, if not more.
Yeah. So she's done it, but I think, again, the beauty of the World Cup is that you get to see them do it over and over and get to see them like improve and be like, oh, okay, I can do this better. I can break a 200 breast world record, but then I can actually break it again by way, way more. And to see Reagan Smith now have 3 backstroke world records, the 100, the 200 in short course meters, and the 100 in long course. Like, again, the rivalry of her and Kaylee McEwen is just, like, or the legend of Reagan and Kaylee is just growing and growing. And it's so cool to see them go back and forth so much in those events. So definitely excited for short course worlds now to see what people can throw down in Budapest. I do want to go to a couple of the comments. Parker Fleischman says, was surprised by Duncan Scott throwing down a European record in the 2 free, as well as the Commonwealth record in the 400 free. Did he have
it wouldn't be a European record in
yeah,
the 2 because Biederman, but it'd be a
British.
Yeah, British record.
And probably Commonwealth record as well.
Probably, yeah. And I think it was like in the top 5. I think I remember this thing is the 4th fastest ever, something like that. I'm literally just going off of what I remember the announcer saying as it happened. So do not quote me on that. But that was that. I saw that comment too. I'm glad he brought it up, because that was that 2 free was a really fun swim to watch. And I don't think he's planning on going to short course worlds. I think I saw people saying that, and that because I was first, I'm like, man, I hope he's going to short course worlds. I saw some people online talking about it. I think he said this is his last meet for all. Like, dang it, why don't you even go lower? But that was really fun to watch him throw down, and a really well executed mid distance freestyle race is so fun to watch, because it's right on that, especially 2 free and 4 free as well, where you've got to ride that line between going out fast enough but not going out too fast, but also not going out too slow, and then having he in particular on that 200 free is really good. And I said this about Kate Douglas when she broke the 200 breast the first time. In NA 200, that third 50 is so crucial, and he is really good at blasting that third 50. And especially if you have any rabbits going out for that first 100, it makes it a lot more dynamic to watch, because he's not necessarily someone that he's going to be in the mix for that first 100, but he's not always going to be in control. He's going to be within striking distance and then takes control on that third 50, which is super exciting to watch as a viewer, because then, never know, is someone gonna, is someone gonna go with them? Is someone gonna have an even bigger like fourth 50 and chase him down? Well, not this time.
Yeah, I was surprised at his performances just because they were so close to both world records, right? He was within, I think, half a second in the 200 free and the 400 free. So certainly not, certainly consequential races for Duncan Scott, especially coming off of winning multiple medals in Paris as well. So I'd say that kind of wraps up the World Cup. I think it's a shame that there's only 3 stops, because if this was a typical World Cup, this would only be the first cluster, and we'd be looking forward to 1 or 2 more clusters of meets. But c'est la vie, that's the world we live in right now. We've got Tim Chang asking, are there any big meets between now and Short Course Worlds? I don't know. Only every college mid-season meet, as Pushib said, which if you're not American, then the answer is no. But in the meantime, we will be seeing a lot of college athletes swimming very fast. And we also have the US Open in early December, which is also in yards. So again, if you're not American, I don't know how much that will actually matter. It would be, I have honestly no gauge and no idea of who will be going to that meet, because it doesn't really make sense for college athletes to go, because they're going to a mid-season probably 2 weeks prior. And a lot of the pros are going to Short Course Worlds, so they will not be going. But we have some pros who are not going to Short Course Worlds, Caleb Dressel, Katie Ledecky. So who knows if they're going to just go swim a yards meet, because I don't know, honestly. But it would be awesome to see some international athletes go swim at the US Open just to swim a yards meet for fun. But honestly, I have no idea who's going to be at that meet. I will be. So if you're a fast swimmer, you should be too.
What events are you swimming, Coleman?
I'm swimming the 1000 warm up.
Oh, nice. No, actually, like you said, with Dressel and Ledecky, people who aren't committed to going Short Course Worlds, I think going to a US Open, that seems like the perfect first meet after your Olympic break, because it's, yards meet, low pressure. No one's gonna really read into your long course performance based on your yards meet back. I mean, normally for a lot of the Florida pros, it feels like their first swims, or at some point in their first swims, there's just like some exhibition races in a Florida dual meet, right? As we always see Dressel throwing down weirdly fast 200 freestyles.
You can do that in Greensboro, Caleb. You have the chance. It's there. So we will see who shows up in Greensboro. Maybe no one, maybe everyone. But we do know that one person in particular has shown up in Tempe, and that is Michael Andrew. And I know that everyone on SwimSwam thinks we talk about this too much. So we're not going to talk about it that much. But I just want to say, I think it's really great that Michael Andrew is changing it up. He's doing something new. He tried training on his own. He said that didn't work for him. I think that would be a really hard thing to do. But now he is at Arizona State. He just messaged me, I think yesterday, and said, like, I'm not sure if this is like where I'm going to stay, but for now he's trying it out. And I think that seems like a great place for him to try, just because Herbie has had a pretty good track record at training sprinters. And I think anywhere Michael goes, he's going to get some different stimuli. And I think as you age into a professional career, that is a great thing. And so I'm really happy for Michael. I hope this works out. But more importantly, I hope he gets a new perspective on his swimming, and he enjoys what he's doing while he tries it out. David, what do you think about this change for MA?
I am so stoked that he chose, at least for, like you said, not sure if he's going to stay there, but at least is trying out ASU, because my first thought when he announced that he was parting ways, and, it sounds like he's waiting for whatever procedures need to be followed to make sure he's able to compete there, like on the NCAA side of things, not competing for the NCAA, but it sounds like in his video where he announced it, that was just what was holding things up. And when he first announced it, that's what he said. He's waiting for final approvals and stuff like that. And everyone was speculating, which was fun. I'm kind of glad that it wasn't a immediate announcement, because that was definitely a fun discussion, seeing everyone talk about it. And my first thought, and many other people's first thought, was that ASU, like you mentioned, with how well they've been doing with sprinters in particular, would be a really good fit. And I was hoping that he would go there, but I wasn't that sure, because I know that you know, kind of on like more personal side of things for him, is that I believe he just kind of recently moved within California closer to his girlfriend, and then so moving closer to there and then moving further out away might be a little you know, difficult, and especially just moving around like that. I wasn't sure if he was gonna and so I feel like this is a really good sign for, you know, how committed he is to trying out new things. Whereas, you know, okay, I am gonna, at least for the time being, and I think you mentioned YouTube videos, like, you know, I was considering maybe trying to like only sometimes swim there, sometimes get training in on my own, and, you know, like drive like the 5 hours or whatever it is. Obviously went for the time being of just training there. And I think that the biggest thing, because there's obviously for years and years and years plenty of discussion about how Michael Andrew trains. We don't necessarily need to fully wade into that. There's a lot of very opinionated comments and opinions about that. I do think that the overall biggest benefit to his training, yeah, you can argue there's going to be some benefits to increasing yardage and stuff like that, whether or not Herbie has some a fresh technical perspective on some of the swimming. Absolute biggest benefit, I think, is going to be being part of a group. I think that is something that he hasn't had for, you know, any extended period of time. He's done stints training, you know, sometimes overseas with like a small group of people from, you know, and, you know, for a week or two, or probably during like, you know, ISL, when the teams would practice together, like around whatever stops they were doing, but not for any prolonged period of time. And I think that a training group is such an important thing, unless you are able to, you might be able to power through a training on your own for a period of time, you know, for maybe like a year. But I think being able to push what needs to be done in practice, you need to basically just rely on pure force of will and discipline. And no matter how disciplined you are, if you do it for years and years and years, it's going to wear off eventually. You're just going to burn out, and it's not going to be fun. Whereas, you know, with a training group, you have people to talk to and joke around between set. You can talk about them after, like, man, yeah, that sucked. We did this. I didn't think I was going to be able to do that. And also, you know, on those days where you're maybe not feeling so well, and if you're on your own or just like training, you might be like, that's all I got. But if you really want to beat that guy next to you, you can dig into that extra gear that you wouldn't really be able to unlock just on your own, just by being in your own head and be like, I want to go faster, It's a lot easier to be like, I want to beat this guy, is a lot. And, you know, just things like that. And I think keeping it fresh, and I am in, more than anything, am in full support of him actually being part of a training group. And I think that is going to hopefully propel him to some newfound success.
And I think, you know, even in situations where he was on a team for ISL or things like that, or you know, on Team USA, like, I think he was still doing his own sets, because the way he was training was so different from other people. And so now that he's not only with a team full time, but doing the same thing as everyone else, like, I think that will help a lot. If nothing else, just mentally, I think it'll maybe bring some love back for swimming, for training, for the sport, that maybe isn't there. I don't know how in love with the sport he is right now, but I think it's just more fun when you do it with people, and when you're all doing the same thing, when you're all in the same boat, and, you know, going through the same grind together. So really, really happy for Michael that he's getting a fresh perspective, and really excited to see how it goes for him. So, yeah, I think that's all we have to say about that. And I think that's all. Oh, no. We've got one more main topic before we get to sink or swim. And that is that the SwimSwam reported that the dual meet between West Virginia and Cincinnati was canceled. It was reported that it was because West Virginia was planning to wear technical suits. Cincinnati was not, and Cincinnati pulled out of the meet because that would provide an unfair advantage to West Virginia. This was a Big 12 conference meet. So that kind of leads to the question, or it led me to the question, should there be more strict guidelines about suiting up in situations like this for dual meets? David, what do you think?
So I do think that there should be an increase in guidelines, but not for suiting up, because I think that is, I am in favor of teams suiting up, whether it's for every meet or for key meets or stuff like that. Just because I think that there is a lot of upside, and I think it's actually just genuinely beneficial to the end of your season, being able to, because you know how a tech suit changes the way your body sits in the water for things like that, like whether you're a sprinter and you have more practice at executing breakouts and turns and finishes at a higher speed because you're in a tech suit, or if you're a distance swimmer, in the way your pacing is going to be different, or it's the way your legs feel in the water when you're not necessarily just like going all out. It just changes the way you sit in the water, the way your legs are able to kind of keep you floating throughout a longer race like that. There's a lot of benefits to getting those race reps in. It's train the way you're going to race. So, and if dual meets for the most part right now are more just glorified practices with another team, you may as well get some added benefit outside of a normal practice. And in terms of regulations around actually suiting up, realistically, you can choose to wear whatever you want. If a team wants to show up wearing board shorts, they could. I don't know why you would. But if you think, hey man, we're really gonna, handicap ourselves today, get in their head a little bit.
That should be an event. 50 free board shorts.
Yeah, right. Like you can wear whatever you want with, as long as it's not an actual competitive advantage in terms of, hey, we're wearing super suit. Sorry, we didn't tell you. I do think though, because like you mentioned, this is a Big 12 meet. I think that the crux of the issue right now is the fact that something that gets brought up every so often around the start, middle, and end of an NCAA season is that dual meets don't really matter for much. I just mentioned that they're more or less in a lot of cases glorified practices where you're just practicing racing, because it doesn't determine the end of your season that much. It's practicing your racing ability, which is very important, but it doesn't give a lot of reason for teams to put a lot of stock into winning a dual meet. And I think that there should be some kind
a dual meet.
Yes, or canceling a dual meet. And I think that there should maybe be some kind of like required schedule set by each conference for like interconference things, like, and whether you want to have a conference dual meet champion at the end of it. This is something that I think about a lot, is different ways you can make dual meets, actually matter in the end result. Whether you want to have, hey, all, some kind of, bracket system for your dual meet schedule, or like based on your record within the conference, everyone needs to swim, all these other teams, what are schedule determined, set by the conference itself, rather than coaches kind of, okay, yeah, we'll rate you on these guys that would fit with our schedule and stuff like that. So that way there would actually, because then it would matter if one team withdraws from a meet, that, okay, you get the loss for it. If that was the case right now, then no one cares. And the only impact right now, realistically, for canceling a dual meet or losing a dual meet, is that on your like whatever mascot athletics webpage, it just has one more loss on the official record, which doesn't actually matter for anything. Yeah. And so I think if you have some kind of guidelines about the required number of interconference dual meets, or a preset schedule that, and there's, whether it's some kind of title or just some kind of, bragging rights for whatever highest winning, because this is something that I don't know how many other states do it like this, but at least because Minnesota, I swam in Minnesota high school, is the way our dual meets worked is, and this is a weird quirk of Minnesota sports in general, you have a section and a conference. The conference is set by the school. Section is can change based on the sport. Sections was like our big taper meet, which is basically like conferences in like college, but the conference was what determined our actual dual meet schedule. And we had that actually, so sections, if you win that big taper meet, that is the basically equivalent of your conference championships right there. The conference was winning whatever conference your school was in was entirely based on your dual meets. And I don't remember the exact setup for the because I wasn't paying that much attention as a high school swimmer. I just kind of knew who we were swimming. Is that everyone swam like this conference was split into like two halves, like the north and the west half, because we're Northwest Suburban was our conference, and you raced everyone on your half of the conference. Then depending on your record after that, you would race whatever a team for the appropriate spot on the other side of the conference. So like everyone, because one issue you'd have with like kind of trying to the logistics of this for a college athletic standpoint would be like, well, if you don't, swimming is already, you'll want to add more cost to it. So you don't want to have a bunch of unknown meets. So you don't know when or where you're traveling. Every meet, if you have like a bracket style tournament, right? You don't know, well, we went really far, so we had to travel to 3 more meets than we budgeted for. Great. Now we spent however much money for it. So everyone swam the same set of meets, and then everyone, no matter whether you were going for last or going for first, had one last meet. And you just basically going, the loser gets 8th, the winner gets 7th, all the way up to, if you had the best record, you'd be going against the other one for first and second, or if you're second best on your half, going for, third and fourth, et cetera, et cetera. So everyone had one scheduled meet that was just TBD. So you knew when you were swimming it, you just didn't know who you were swimming in. And if you knew if it's home or away as well, because I think it alternated based on the side of the conference. Something like that, right? You don't need to mess that much around with your dual meet schedule. You don't need to add that much, potential added cost for travel, which is something that, swimming probably should stay away from adding that, because with the current state of college athletics.
Yeah, we don't want that.
But I mean, especially imagine how electric those last dual meets would be if all right, we're going for, third in the conference right now. Even if you're not going for obviously the title is going to be exciting, but if you're going for third, it's like, all right, well, we might get some cool trophy or banner if we win this meet. If we lose, we get nothing. And, or just general bragging rights. And I think some kind of stakes at a dual meet, because I think it'd be too radical a change to be like, okay, we're going to pin all NCAA qualification to dual meets and only 8 teams go based on your record, and like it's selected like college football. That would be a massive top end change, because honestly, this is not something that the entire NCAA would need to do. If the SEC decided to do this,
right,
they could do that. They don't need to get every other conference on board, or even if like a mid-major conference decides to do it, even a random D3 conference decides to do it, people go, oh, that looks kind of cool. So if anyone with any strings to pull is listening to this.
No, I like that a lot. And I think it would be a cool distinction to make, because we have conference championships and we have NCAA championships. And I think depending on the team, depending on the athlete, you put different emphasis on each of those meets, right? Like Cal famously doesn't really care about Pac-12s, right? Or, their conference championship. I think in the past, we've seen Tennessee like really go all out for their conference championships, things like that, where like Ohio State on the women's side were the 5-time defending conference championships, because that was like their meet. And so I think it would be really cool if you made those, like, you have the opportunity to make the conference championships a different format than a normal swim meet, because right now conference championships and NCAA championships are the exact same thing, right? It's the exact same competition. It's might be a different amount of days, but like same events, same everything. It's like, why not make it different? Why not have it be a tournament, or, this bracket style where you're just, the formatting is completely different. You're seeing different swimmers and do different things, or having to fit into different boxes so that you're putting teams against each other rather than just like competing in a swim meet like everything else. So could be exciting.
Yeah. And the thing that made me think was the fact that this was an interconference meet. Like if it was just some, oh, hey, we normally swim you guys at like whatever time, but we actually have no real relation, whatever. I feel like it matters, like, because then you could still have meets like that in this format. And I do think, like you mentioned, replacing conference, potentially replacing your conference championship with this. Also, I feel like some people might also be apprehensive that, so you don't want to. You could always just have a conference champion and a dual meet conference champion. You could just add another title to it too, because I think that some people are gonna, because they want to mirror the traditional, okay, you have the one big meet and then the one bigger meet after it, or for like NCAA qualification. But you could also, like I mentioned, having that last meet, like, the TBD, that could just be instead of having a full blown conference champion, you just have like 3 days and like you pepper like all of the different championships. So it's like the last meet. It's like this duel at this time, this duel at that time, this duel at that time. Like you sometimes see in some other college sports for like playoffs and like a conference, stuff like that, where it's like, hey, at this time you have these two teams going, at this time you have these two teams going, and like the winner of each one goes to whatever. And I think that makes it way easier to make those, because for swim nerds, those big taper meets, those championship format meets are really exciting. If you're not a swim nerd, watching it doesn't really, trying to keep track of the score when there's 12 teams there and there's 2 finals of each one, and wait, but that guy went faster in the slower final. Why? But he can only get 9 because he didn't get in the pre. Oh, I see. Locked finals is what it's called. Cool.
Yeah.
But they don't do
like
this at the
Olympics? The scoring of those meets is just completely not relatable.
Thousands of points. Yeah.
Not accessible at all, right? It's like the first guy gets 20, the second guy gets 17. It's like it's like, did he win or did he lose?
Yeah, there's a lot of different like levels of, because again, it's something I think about just on my own all the time, because something that actually interests me a lot is like how you could build out a different NCAA season or different ways you could change it. And I think the thing I was come down to is that there's various levels of intrusiveness that you could do. Like I think the least intrusive measure is to just mandate a dual meet schedule within the conference. You need to swim whatever, these are your 8 required dual meets, and the 8th one will be determined based on your conference ranking. You're hosting this year, or you're traveling somewhere within the conference. You'll know 2 weeks beforehand or whatever. That feels like, and this is separate from conference champion. Like this one will happen, at whatever date in between like mid-season and the conference championships, maybe, like just to give it enough run time for. But again, conference set that. The most intrusive would be we're replacing NCAAs with the dual meet tournament, and there's many steps in between that of like replacing things, throwing things out, adding new meet formats and stuff like that. And that's something that if could be explored and implemented in a lot of different ways. And I think that the versatility of options you have really drives home how much we should maybe try some of these things at some point, some conference, please.
Please. Well, all right. Now that we've solved all of college swimming's problems, we found all of the answers. Let's end this breakdown, how we always do, with some sink or swims. First up today on Sink or Swim, Luka Mijatovic. 15-year-old Luka Mijatovic went 412.3 in the frickin' 500 free, which is completely ridiculous. He destroyed Drew Kibler's 15-16 national age group record by over 3 seconds. This was Luka's 12th NAG that he has broken in his career. So sink or swim, by the time he turns 17 in April of 2026, he will have broken 12 more.
So let's first of all, on that 500 time is ridiculous.
It's so crazy.
I would have scored at last year's NCAAs. Yeah. It would have placed in the top 16 out of prelims, and that's ridiculous.
As a 15-year-old.
As a 15-year-old, and I feel like obviously we know that the age is skewed a bit later on the men's side, NCAAs in particular, and then I feel like that's getting more and more extreme as NCAA swimming is crazy fast all around. I am going to swim it because I'm trying to think. He went a few other personal bests at that same meet as well, and he's still at that point where it feels like he's about to hit some kind of plateau. You must think he can't get any fast. When he went 4:14, I thought that okay, we're gonna see, and then he kept going faster and faster. And I'm thinking is because he can break his own records a few times, and he's going to be creeping towards and getting new records. And so I think,
and this is also between long course and short course,
and that's exactly what I was thinking, is that he's got 2 years in and 2 formats. So yeah, I think realistically he could get 3 more short course yards records, 3 more long course meters records, and then the next year do 3 and 3 again. That feels like a very reasonable amount, and he could do more than that. Especially, I mean, he could in theory break that 500 record like three of three of those times for that like amount there. And, you know, he was so impressive at junior Pan Pacs as well. And I think that there's a lot of room for him to, you know, keep chipping away at his own records or take new records for himself. And like you said, between just throw him in a short course meters pool, then he could probably get most of the way there. But yeah, swim.
I want to believe, but I am going to sink it just because he is getting older, and it's not that I think he's going to plateau, quote unquote, or stop going best times, but I think at some point going best times will get harder or become less common for him. And not that I want that, but I do think that's a reality of swimming and aging in swimming. And 12 is a lot. I think he will continue to break national age group records for sure. But 12 more from this point forward, that I don't know if I can safely bet on that one. I think
the only reason is because of the 2 courses. That's the only thing I think it's feasible. It's just because that, you know, I think 6 and 6 feels a lot more reasonable, but it's still crazy. Like, I'm not saying, oh, that's normal. That people do that all the time.
Well, and you know, it's like he has nags between long course and short course in 2 free, 4 free /5 free, 1,000 /8 free, mile, 400 IM, like 5 different events where he is a legitimate threat to break those records. And we've seen him where he has meets like he had this one where he goes 5 or 6 best times, you know, just like across the board, constant improvement. So it's not outside the realm of possibilities, I don't think, in any regard, but I'm gonna be cautiously pessimistic this time. But Luka, congrats. I hope you keep killing it. I hope you break more than 12 nags in the next year and a half.
He's so fun to watch. It's so crazy to see him just keep dropping.
It really is. Yeah, I can't wait to see what he does next. Speaking of what will they do next, Chris Guiliano is still in the transfer portal after Notre Dame's men's swim team was suspended for this season. We don't know where he is going to land. And I think it's important also to remember in this situation that I think he is somewhere between 3 to 4 years into a degree from Notre Dame. So this decision also has academic implications as well as athletic ones. But sink or swim, we will see Chris Guiliano compete in the NCAA this season.
I am going to swim it because mainly with the academic side of things kind of got me thinking, as I feel like he's gonna, you know, want to, you know, it's not just gonna go pro stop going to school this close to you know, completing a degree like that. And I understand that's making a lot of difficulty with being able to transfer, because, you know, when you're that far into a degree, then that's really hard to fully transfer
from quite a good school too.
Yeah, but I feel like, you know, if he can get that figured out, and I think at that point, I think he's gonna want to finish out that degree. And then the reason why I'm swimming it is because I feel like if you're at that point, even if it's just effectively for training and, you know, getting a chance to race consistently, I think with someone who's setting his eyes towards international long course success, said many times, I'll say it again, I'm a huge proponent of racing is a vital part of your overall preparation and training. And I think that just getting some high level racing they're able to in the NCAA, especially these days, the amount of high level racing able to do, and, you know what, even if he doesn't fully target, you know, a conference championship or NCAAs, and he just basically swims through those meets and, you know, waltzes into some points, I think if he's able to figure out the academic side of the transfer, I may as well compete and be able to travel to these meets and stuff like that, even if he does have the option to just train with a program as a pro or something like that. I think he might take it just for the racing opportunity.
So I think one of the most interesting things we saw coming out of this weekend was that the Notre Dame men's freshman class competed in a swim meet that was in Indiana. And so that raises the question, what's going on in Notre Dame, right? Like, is the men's team still allowed to train? Are they still allowed to be coached by the coaching staff? Is Chris Guiliano still currently training at Notre Dame? Because I think if the suspension only ends up being 1 year, I don't think he wants to leave Notre Dame. I think he likes it there. I think, again, he almost has his degree there. He can certainly still keep working on his degree at this point. He's not academically ineligible to go to school. So I think I'm going to swim it, but I'm not confident in that swim. I think there's a good chance he doesn't end up transferring somewhere else, again, because in part it's really hard to transfer 3/4 of a degree to another school, and to make those credits work. We were seeing in the comments that Cal and Indiana at this point are two big front runners for where he goes, both of which have Olympic teammates of his on their team. Matt King is at Indiana now. Jack Alexey is at Cal, both of which swam on the 400 free relay at the Olympics with Chris Guiliano. So I think both have strong cases. Indiana's right down the road. Dave Durden was on the Olympic staff, so it's like he has strong ties to both. I have no idea where he's going to end up, but I will swim that, because if either of those teams get Chris Guiliano, it drastically increases their chances of winning an NCAA team title this year.
Yeah, those are two contenders.
They already have strong, I think it's, we think it's those two teams in Texas at this point. And if you get a 50+ point scorer who is also going to bolster 4 of your relays heavily, that will tip the scales, certainly. And so I think whatever school is recruiting him is probably going to do everything they can to make that work and to make him want to be there. So for that reason, I will swim it also. But I do think there's a strong chance that we don't see him in the NCAA this year, and maybe he just waits it out at Notre Dame. We'll see. All right, next up on Sink or Swim. Gretchen Walsh did some Gretchen Walsh things this past weekend. She went 20.8 in the 50 free and 48.4 in the 100 fly. It is insane to me that those times don't even seem that fast, because Gretchen Walsh is the one swimming them. In case you missed it, those are the fastest times ever swum at a dual meet, because before Gretchen Walsh, they would have been NCAA records by a lot. So I'm curious. We saw Gretchen Walsh just completely obliterate NCAA yards records last season. Do you think that she will be faster at NCAAs this year than she was last year?
Now, do you mean like faster in every single event, if assuming she does the same lineup, or just like kind of generally overall faster?
Majority of events. Like, let's say, do you think Gretchen Walsh breaks goes 2 best times out of the 50 free, 100 free, 100 back, and 100 fly, and 50 back?
In that case, I will swim it, just because of how fast you go. If it was every single, or 3 for 3 in her individual events, something like that, I would think it, because I think it wouldn't be out of the realm possibility for her to, once you've gone that fast, right? It doesn't take a lot to just barely miss breaking a record, right? Especially in sprint events, or what we saw last year from Leanne Marchand in the 400 IM. Hey, let's back off a little bit because I have an important relay swim later, or something like that. And I wouldn't be surprised if they decided they want to target a relay or something at like the end of a session, and she like backs off in one single event for one day. It might be hard to convince her to do that based on how fast she goes all the time, but I think that it's not out of the realm possibility for her to be, and I'm not saying like a second slower, like a 10th slower than one of her records in at least one of the events doesn't seem crazy to me. I do think just based on her trajectory and how she's, she still is finding ways to be better at different parts of the season. She seems to still be, I mean, she would have had a very good reasoning and excuse to go pro and not compete in the NCAA this year here. And I feel like the fact that she's competing once more is a good indicator that she maybe has some more to give as well. Because realistically, they might even be able to win another title without her too. So, yeah, I'm gonna swim it just because I don't want to bet against Gretchen Walsh. And I think if it's just a majority of the swims, that feels very reasonable for her to, or she just goes completely and just do like 3 new events that she never touches. Be like, all right, I'm swimming.
I wish.
The 500.
I mean, even if it's like, 2 IM, 2 free, 2 back, what do you think she could get? I mean, I don't think that would be smart, but it'd be fun.
Yeah. Mid-season, maybe.
Right. I mean, yeah, I'm going to swim it just because we're seeing her race incredibly well in season, the best she ever has in season. She's coming off an Olympics. She's coming off a summer where she made her first Olympic team, broke her first world record, and won Olympic medals. And it doesn't seem like there's any kind of Olympic hangover. It seems like she is motivated. It's her senior season. It's her last season competing with her sister. Like it seems like she wants to make the most of this opportunity. So yeah, I think she's gonna go faster. The reason I asked this question is because when you see people have the NCAAs that they do, like Caleb Dressel's 2018, Leon Marchand 2023, like he came back the next year and did swim different events or a different event because it was just like, you pretty much did all you can do in the 200 IM. Let's see what you got in the 500 free,
Oh, a 402. Cool.
Yeah, exactly. But then it's like he gained 3 seconds in the 400 IM because it's like I didn't need to go a best time in that. In the 200 breast, I think he went a smidge faster, right?
Yeah.
Like so I was just curious. It's like, do we think she had the best NCAAs I think a woman has ever had? I mean, if not the best, like right up there. It was a phenomenal performance. It's like, do we think she can still go faster? And the answer is yes. I think she can still go faster in yards, even though she is like already leagues beyond everyone else that she competes against. So I will swim it as well. All right. We saw articles this week about both Siobhan Haughey and Kate Douglas, who were the first and third overall performers at the World Cup, unsure about their futures all the way up to 2028. They will both keep competing for a while, but they both aren't sure that they will keep competing all the way to LA 2028, which I find a little ironic because they are both seemingly in their prime right now and wrecking it in the pool. So sink or swim, we will see. This is a double. We will see KD and Siobhan in LA 2028.
So I think I feel a lot more likely that Kate Douglas will continue through to 2028 just because that I think it's going to be really hard to resist that allure of a home Olympics, especially, it's not like you're just holding on and you're like about to fall off. She just smashed world record. She's clearly doing very, very well right now. And I don't see, even over the course of 4 years, the wheels falling off. And I think that there's probably a lot of, this is something I was thinking about a lot after Paris, so that there's probably a lot of American swimmers in particular who maybe would have retired after Paris that are a lot more likely to, I can give another 4 years ago. I think like we saw a disproportionate amount of of retirements after Tokyo, I think because of the 5-year Olympic cycle and after COVID. I think that probably prematurely ended a couple of careers just in like worldwide in general. I think just like that meant extra mental strain of everything that happened with that. And then the fact that it was a 5-year cycle as well. And I think
Absolutely.
for American athletes in particular, I think it's gonna be kind of the opposite. And I wonder if it's almost gonna like subtly trick some people a little bit, the fact that they just did a 3-year cycle and they're like, it wasn't that bad. I can do it again. So I'm feeling fairly confident. She said she's 50-50. I'm like, personally, I feel like 75-25 that she's going to. Because I do see, it does seem like she at least has some desire to, after a certain point, explore her, to do some math, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Siobhan, I feel like is definitely a lot more of a toss up for me right now. And it seems like I think one really good step in the direction of being able to continue through till LA is that she already has planned into her, schedule a break
Mm-hmm.
to see where she's at, take some, this amount of time out, see how I feel. And I think that that's kind of laying the groundwork for being able to healthily go through until 2028. And that she said that she only wants to be going if she feels like she's there to compete. She doesn't want to just participate. She wants to be in the hunt for some hardware and in, a threat. She doesn't want to just show up and, place 8th or something. She wants to be there to be a significant threat. And like you said, they're both swimming really well right now. And I think after the fact that she's not just pushing through, because I think if you do that, you're opening the door to unneeded burnout and a lot more likely to go, you know what, never mind, I can't do this, both physically and mentally, because you could also physically burn yourself out just by my body don't work the way it needs to right now to try and get on that podium again. And so I'm going to swim it overall. And I think that if it ends up not coming to fruition, I feel like it's more likely that Siobhan will decide, you know what, I'm good with where I'm at. I don't need it. I think Douglas is a lot more likely to chase that opportunity, that once in a lifetime opportunity to compete on home soil at the Olympic Games.
Absolutely. I'm also going to swim it. And I think it's a safe thing to say for athletes. I'm unsure where I will be in 4 years. But here's my plan for the next 2 years. And I think both of them are on such great trajectories that I don't think their trajectory is going to drastically change enough, pending some major life event that would lead them to retirement before 2028. But I think it's a good thing to say for your own peace of mind that it's like, I'm not locked in. I don't have to do this. I will make the decision when the time comes, so that you don't feel trapped, right? Or you don't feel like, oh God, I have to keep doing this for 3 more years. They're just like, no, I'm doing this for another year or 2, and then I will reevaluate. And again, like you said, same thing with taking a break. Like, it gives your mind peace to not have to feel like, oh, I have to keep doing this for 3 more years or 4 more years. And so I think giving yourself that shortened clock just helps you sustain being a professional athlete for a longer time. So I really like what they're doing, that they're not just like being like, okay, yep, I'm doing it, but they're giving themselves time and space. But I think the advantage that both of those athletes also have is they're both extremely versatile, and they both can come down in events. In terms of, Kate Douglas already has the American record in the 50 free. Like, she could just be a sprinter if she wanted to. And I think that helps with longevity in swimming a lot. If you're just swimming shorter events, right now she's this mid distance queen, but like, if she just wanted to do the 50 free and the 100 fly, or just be on relays, like, she could totally do that and do it really, really well. Same for Siobhan. The 100 and the 200 free right now are her bread and butter. But if she just wanted to be a sprinter and train for the 100 and the 50, or even the 50, she could probably do that too and have a lot of success. So I think that also works in their favor. So I'm swimming it. I think we'll see both of them in LA. Or I think they will.
Like Sarah Sjöström is kind of setting the blueprint for being able to do that as well. Like she's gone down in events and it's like, oh, just do the 50. Oh, and I guess also the 100. Oops, I won.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Sarah Sjöström is the blueprint for aging swimmers, I think. All right. Last sink or swim today. This is an over-under. 6.5 world records will be broken at short course meters world championships in December. 6.5 over or under on world records.
So something I was thinking about, and I was kind of, okay, so if you go through, and if any of these people are not going, please jump in and correct, because I don't entirely know for everyone who's committed and not going. But just looking at like World Cup performance recently, right? So I would imagine that Marchand is probably capable of doing at least 200 and 400 IM records. 100 IM might not be, so we'll keep, but that's that 2 right now. Like he could, but it's short course Dressel was pretty insane. If we assume that Regan Smith just re-breaks her own world records, it can't get McNeil's 50 back, but that's also on the table. So we're already at 4 with the potential for being up to 6. If those dicier ones go there. And then Kate Douglas on the 200 breast, and then Noe Ponti. Just looking at performance from short course worlds, and you have some potential for maybe some like wildcard swims if Pan is able to crack either. Honestly, I feel like maybe more likely like the
2 free,
right? Yeah, instead of the 100, because I think Chalmers in that 1 free, but just like how much he was able to blast those underwaters is maybe a bit more to that strength then. But I think Pan, I think he could do something crazy. And I was already okay, I'm probably leaning some, and then I went, oh wait, relays. If we have those 3 American women that you mentioned, those medley relays are toast.
Yeah, I forgot about relays.
If you get to use Reagan on backstroke, and then you can use Gretchen on fly.
Okay, well, this was a no-brainer swim.
I was already leaning towards swim, and I was making breakfast this morning. I went, oh wait, relays.
All right. Well, yeah, this doesn't need any further discussion. That's a swim. I think we will absolutely see over 6 world records fall at short course worlds.
Would you sink or swim if it was just individual, though?
If it was just individual, I think I might sink it. And that's just because, again, at the World Cup, you get those race reps in over and over and over. And not that I don't think everyone's going to be great, but I think it matters when you get to do a race and then immediately go back a week later and have another shot at it. I think that's why Kate Douglas smashed the 200 breast world record, right? That's why Noe Ponte broke the 50 fly record twice. That's why Regan Smith got better every time she swam the 100 back and the 200 back. It's like, I think that matters. And I don't know how much all these athletes are training short course meters at home, so it's like, how many reps are they really getting in? Because the more they can specify, the better chance that there are to break these world records. It's like, it's not like all they have to do is just fall in a pool, even though that's what it seems like sometimes. So if individual, I think I'm going to sink it. I think 6 is like the number we might see for individual world records, but obviously after seeing the World Cup, it seems like there's the potential for like 12 individual world records because there are some other athletes who are going to be on their A game. I mean, the US is sending a strong contingent of athletes, so it's like we could see some really special swims there, but with relays, no brainer. It's going to happen. It's going to be such a fast meet. I'm now so excited for this meet, and we're going to talk more about it in the weeks to come for sure. So, all right, this was a marathon of a breakdown, but thanks for sticking with us. If you listen to the whole thing, David, thanks so much for joining us as always, and we will